Which data type is best when classifying a column of data containing currency values?
I think it's decimal number.
It was the other one.
What is a fixed versus a... What is
This one is a Trinidad scorpion. Cheers.
And I heard water is not a good idea right now.
You just gotta sit through the heat.
Oh, God.
You do a lot with Power Apps. What's something that if you could add to Power Apps, you would want to add to Power Apps?
Oh.
Rapid fire, Brian. Let's get to the
No,
next one.
delegation. Definitely delegation.
Okay.
The SharePoint side, making it where you can query some of that SharePoint list like tearing up, man.
Yeah. That one hit me hard. I feel similar with Power BI. There's some things with SharePoint I'd like to change up a tad bit. So, you ready for the next question?
Yeah.
Let's dive into the hot seat.
Are you struggling to integrate Microsoft Copilot in your daily work routine? Join us for a really exciting session that we have coming up on Copilot in Microsoft 365, where we're going to explore all of the different ways that Copilot integrates in with some of your favorite tools like Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, Excel, and there's loads of fun ways that you can leverage Copilot to be much more productive with your time. We're going to look at lots of different use cases as well as answer questions that you have about Copilot, so we're excited to have you join us and we'll see you there. Well, welcome everyone to today's Learn with the Nerds session. I'm excited to have you here as we start to explore Copilot. I'm sure if you've been listening to any news within the Microsoft world or even beyond Microsoft, you can't go through a day without hearing about AI and how it's impacting technology or your everyday life. And so today's session is really going to explore that from the Microsoft perspective, looking at Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's AI technology. And we're going to be looking at really two aspects of Copilot. One, the free version that anybody can do. We'll be kind of focusing the first half of our session on the free version of Copilot. And then the second half of our session, we'll be looking at the Microsoft 365 version of Copilot. And the big differences there are the integration into some of the tools that you know and love. So before I go too much further, let me take a moment and introduce myself. My name is Devin Knight. I'm the president of Pragmatic Works Training. I'm a big AI enthusiast, and so I'm excited that you're here today to learn with me. And I've been preparing lots of AI classes here at Pragmatic Works, and so we're going to be looking at some of the material that we've been working on as part of our paid subscription platform, our on-demand learning subscription, in today's session. So thanks for joining. Here again is what our plan is for today. We're going to be first introducing you to Copilot. I don't want to assume that all of you are familiar with what Copilot is, as much as you might find it in the news. We'll do a little brief introduction to Copilot. We're also going to talk about prompt engineering. And that section, we're really going to be focusing on things that everybody can follow along with. Everyone can take advantage of, whether you have the paid version of Copilot or the free version of Copilot. Anyone can follow along and learn during that section. Then we're really going to be looking at the paid version of Copilot in the next section. That's Copilot for Microsoft 365. And we'll be showing you how it integrates into tools like Excel, Outlook, OneNote, all of the PowerPoint, all the tools that you use on a regular day-to-day basis. You're going to see how Copilot integrates into those. But again, as a reminder, that is part of the paid Copilot tool. It's just $30 per month per user. We'll get more into that here in a few moments. And if we have some extra time at the end, we'll also talk about a few tips and tricks. I'll really try and intermingle those tips and tricks throughout the session because I think we're going to have a pretty tight schedule here. So we got an hour and a half together. Thank you so much for joining. Let's jump into it. So let's start first with an introduction to Copilot. I don't want to assume that everyone attending today's session is already very familiar with Copilot. So let's start at the basics. Copilot is really an artificial or AI helper tool that's built inside of Microsoft's ecosystem. So it's built on top of some of the technologies that are provided by another company known as OpenAI. OpenAI, you've hopefully heard in the news already as well. They're the company that originated ChatGPT. So ChatGPT was really on the kind of forefront more than a year ago now. I think the latest version of GPT technologies came out a year ago. ChatGPT 4 came out about a year ago, but they had even some ChatGPT capabilities prior to that. But through Microsoft's partnership with OpenAI, that's the company that originated ChatGPT, that's where we get Copilot. Microsoft, as of the day of me recording this, is 49% ownership of OpenAI. And because of that, they get a lot of early access into some of the work that OpenAI does, which again is where we get Copilot from. So it's really helped, AI tools in general and Copilot more specifically are here to help make you more productive, to take some things that maybe you get roadblocked on or you have writer's block on, and you can use tools like Copilot to be able to give you that little jolt of energy or jolt of brainstorming to get you further along in what you're working on. So really early on, what I would like to talk briefly about is what's the difference between a technology like ChatGPT and Copilot. And they do a lot of the same things. They're built on top of a lot of the same technologies. But some of the major differences that you're going to find is that ChatGPT is going to be more for general OpenAI queries, and what's known as generative AI, meaning you can ask a prompt, which we'll talk more about prompts in a little bit later. But it uses what's known as a large language model. So you'll hear that acronym LLM occasionally. But this large language model is used to be able to parse out a response, give you a response from a prompt that you provide. Both ChatGPT and Copilot use that same methodology, but the difference that you'll find with Copilot is depending on which level of Copilot you have, you'll be able to integrate into some of your Office products that you have. So you'll be able to integrate into things like Excel, Outlook, OneNote, PowerPoint, like we mentioned. And then you'll also have capabilities to tap into something known as the Microsoft Graph. So let me go ahead and go to this next slide here because this covers a little bit of that as well. Microsoft Graph, if you're not familiar with that, is really the interconnected web of everything that you do within Microsoft's world. So think of the Microsoft Graph as when you go to connect into a Teams chat and OneDrive and SharePoint Online and your email, all of the things that you do with inside of Microsoft's ecosystem is connected with Microsoft Graph. And Copilot has access into that to be able to allow you to query a Word document you have saved in OneDrive and create a PowerPoint from it. Or perhaps give me a summary of a meeting that I had last week. So it's able to look at the transcript that you had from a Teams meeting and be able to give you some kind of summary or action items. So there's all kinds of neat stuff that you have. Now, a couple of the things I want to highlight on this slide, talking about the different levels of Copilot. First of all, there is the free Copilot. That's the one that's very similar to the ChatGPT that many of you are likely using today. What that allows you to do is more general AI queries, where you can type in a prompt and you get a text response returned back. That's what the free version of Copilot allows you to do. When you start to get into the paid versions of Copilot, you'll find there's a Copilot Pro, and then there's Copilot for Microsoft 365. And you'll notice there are some differences between the two, in not only the price, but also in features. What Copilot Pro allows you to do, that's really kind of the big differentiator from the free version, is the interconnectivity into some of those Office tools that we've talked about. So Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, all of those have integrations in with Copilot that you get when you have Copilot Pro. Now, Copilot Pro, you'll see, is kind of under this bucket of a feature that an individual might purchase. For organizations, that's when you're going to look at Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's the $30 per month per user. One note worth mentioning, at least as of today, while it might be $30 a month per user, you have to pay for all 12 months in advance. That's actually the way that it works right now when it comes to Copilot for Microsoft 365. So the big differentiator when you go up to that organizational level and you start to look at Copilot for Microsoft 365 is the integration into the Microsoft Graph. So I mentioned this briefly earlier, but it's worth repeating. This is what allows you, while you're using Copilot, to interconnect into Teams chats and to interconnect into files you have saved in OneDrive. So the example I gave a moment ago is I could ask Copilot to build me a PowerPoint deck based on a Word document that I have. So I could have a 50-page Word document saved on OneDrive, and while I'm inside PowerPoint, I can reference that Word document as long as it's in OneDrive, and I can say, build me a PowerPoint presentation based on X file. So that's one of the big benefits that you get from Copilot for Microsoft 365. And that's just one example. There's actually loads of other, and we're hoping to explore those through today's session. All right, so another thing that's worth mentioning to talk about the difference between the free version of Copilot and the paid version of Copilot. The free version is going to primarily give you access into publicly found data on the web. It's not going to interconnect into your organizational data, whereas the Copilot for Microsoft 365 on the right-hand side, that's the paid version. Not only do you have access into the publicly found data on the web, but you also have access into that Microsoft Graph data I mentioned a moment ago. For the free version of Copilot, you can either use your personal account or a business account. So meaning I can log in with my devinknight@outlook.com, or I can log in with my Pragmatic Works email address, and I could use the free version of Copilot. The benefit to signing in to even the free version of Copilot with my business account is it gives me access into something called commercial data protection. And this is something that a lot of people fear when it comes to Copilot, so it's worth mentioning. This is what secures your information, your data, from being to be accessed to the training of the AI model. So a lot of people have fear about what is AI collecting from me? What is it going to be doing with my data? If you are signed in with your business account using Copilot, Copilot will not take your information or data and train its model to share with others. That's what's known as the commercial data protection. And as long as you're signed in with your business account, you have that protection over overseeing everything. That applies not only to the free version of Copilot, but also the paid version of Copilot. And then, of course, as we've mentioned on the right-hand side, the paid version of Copilot has that integration into some of the Microsoft 365 tools. It also requires that you have a Microsoft 365 subscription as well to be able to do the paid version of Copilot. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about where Copilot can be found. The great news is Copilot is everywhere. As I mentioned early on, you can't take a few steps on the internet without learning something about AI or Copilot, and you can find Copilot just about anywhere that you interact with Microsoft. So you could simply go into your web browser and you can go to copilot.microsoft.com and you can find Copilot. That's probably where we'll spend most of our early half of the session, is at copilot.microsoft.com. You could also just simply open up your Edge web browser and you'll find it as an add-in on the right-hand side, as long as you're running a more modern version of Edge. You'll then also find it in Windows 11. So as you're integrating or working within Windows 11, assuming you have Windows 11, you'll see the Copilot add-in inside of Windows 11. You'll also find it inside of Microsoft Teams. So inside of Microsoft Teams, you'll find it. And then finally, you'll also find it inside of your mobile phone. So whether you're running iOS or Android, there is a Copilot app that you can download for free. And while you're on the go, you can ask questions of Copilot. Now, a lot of what I'm talking about today is the Microsoft Copilot. And because this word Copilot is so widely used, it can be a little confusing, but it's worth knowing that there are loads of other Copilots we're not going to be talking about today. For example, there's Copilot for security. There's Copilot in GitHub. There's Copilot in Power Platform. And Brian has actually done a Copilot in Power Apps session in the past. You can find those on our YouTube channel. But there's really Copilot everywhere you step inside of Microsoft's world. And we're going to be primarily focusing in on the Microsoft Copilot that you can find by going to the web browser. That's copilot.microsoft.com. Now, we talked a little bit about security considerations earlier. This is also worth mentioning. Copilot is going to leverage the existing security model that you have. And this is important to know because whatever files you have access today is also the same files that Copilot is going to have access to whenever you're working within it. So the example I gave earlier, let's refer back to that for a moment, where I want to create a PowerPoint deck off of a Word document that I have saved in OneDrive. If that file I have saved in OneDrive is accessible to me, but also accessible to others within the organization, Copilot will show them that file and give them access to use that file whenever they're doing Copilot prompts as well. So Copilot doesn't change anything with your existing security model. However, what it might do is expose some holes or maybe perhaps issues with your existing security setup. Meaning if someone has access to a file, Copilot will likely show them that file, and they might not have even realized they had access to it before. So again, Copilot doesn't change anything with your security model. However, it does expose potential security flaws that you had all along. So that's something to be aware of. And then finally, the last thing I'll mention before we get into our first little brief demonstration is that, again, Copilot is a generative AI tool. It uses this large language model to be able to return back results to you. And what that means is it's going to return back human-like responses to you. everything that you get from Qt Copilot is going to look like nearly like a human wrote it. In often cases, a nice trained eye can probably detect that looks like something AI wrote. If you've looked at some AI responses over time, you could probably figure that out. But the other thing that's worth noting is that what you do within Copilot has a non-deterministic behavior to it, and that's by design. What that means is whenever you're writing Copilot responses, and if you're following along with me today, or even if you're watching a recording of this later, what non-deterministic means is I could write a Copilot prompt and you could write the exact same Copilot prompt and you could get different results. So I kind of want to let you know about that ahead of time, because if you get different responses than I do, that's because of the non-deterministic behavior within inside of Copilot that's there by design. I could even use the same Copilot prompt more than once and get different results. So just be aware of that. Don't expect to get the exact same results with me as we're going through today's session. Some of the results will also be personalized over time. So the more information you give to Copilot, the more it'll start to personalize the things that you provide to it. And then another thing worth noting is Copilot is really constantly being improved. So something that you might see today could be changed over time just because of the improvements that Microsoft is continually making with inside of Copilot. All right, so the first thing that I want to show you today is the environment that we're going to be working in today's session. We're going to be primarily working with inside of our web browser. So you'll want to launch open whatever your favorite web browser is. It doesn't matter whether you're using Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge today. There are going to be some demos that are Edge specific that I'll show you in a little bit. But what I want to give you a little bit of insight into, and maybe some of my colleagues that are manning the chat today can actually share this link with you, is we're going to be navigating to a website called copilot.microsoft.com. And so let me give you a little peek at what we're going to be using today. So I'm going to drag this over onto the screen. This is the website we're going to be going to, copilot.microsoft.com. Now, when you visit that website, you can actually tinker around with inside of Copilot without even signing in. There's an option that you can use copilot.microsoft.com without signing in. However, you will have some limitations that you'll hit once you attempt to use Copilot for so many times without even providing a free email account. But we're going to visit copilot.microsoft.com. So again, if you want to play along with us today, that's where you're going to be visiting. Now, a couple things I want to point out to you. There are a couple different views on this page that you may get depending on how you sign in. The view that I'm showing on my screen right now is with me signed in with my business account. I am signed in with my Pragmatic Works account. And that's why you're seeing over here on the top left, first of all, you're seeing Pragmatic Works right here. That's because I'm signed in with my Pragmatic Works account. You're also seeing, because I'm signed in with my business account, this little toggle right here where I can toggle back and forth between the web and work version of Copilot. The web version is the free version of Copilot you're seeing right here. Okay, so the web version is the free version. The work version, which I'm seeing, and you may not be seeing, again, the reason why I'm seeing the difference here is because I'm signed in with my business account. But the work version, that is the paid version of Copilot. This is Copilot for Microsoft 365. That's the one that you need to pay $30 per month per user to be able to use. So if you don't have that for today, don't worry. The first half of today's session, you will not need the paid version of Copilot. The second half of the session, you will. Okay, so if you don't have that today, no worries. You can just watch that portion of the class. By the way, there is no free trial of the paid version of the Copilot, the paid version. I wish there was. I would have instructed everyone to kind of sign up for the trial ahead of time, but unfortunately, there's not a trial version of the paid Copilot. But good news is most of what we're going to be doing today, you can do with the free version of Copilot. All right. Now, the other thing I want to highlight for you is within inside of your business account. If you sign in with your business account, you'll also see this little word up in the top right saying protected. That's that thing I mentioned earlier, the commercial data protection within inside of Copilot, which means anything that I use, anything I type inside of Copilot will not be used to train Copilot's AI model. So if you want to make sure that you're not passing any information, you're passing in private information, you want to sign in with your business account. All right, so that's one way you might see this screen. Another way that you might see this screen is like this. So I'm at the same exact website now, but this is copilot.microsoft.com, and I have not signed in. You'll actually see a couple things on my screen indicating that. One here on the bottom, it's telling me to sign in, so it's not going to be tracking the history of all my prompts. You'll also see in the top right that I'm not signed in as well. What I would recommend for today's class is that you at least sign in with a personal email account, personal Microsoft account. That could be your Outlook.com, Hotmail.com, MSN.com, whatever Microsoft account that you may have had over time. I would recommend that you do at least sign in, so that way you can kind of see some of the added benefits of that throughout today, including being able to see the tracking of prompts that you write throughout the day. All right. Now, I'm going to be actually using a window of Copilot where I have signed in with my personal account right here. So while I'm signed in with my personal account, which I think this is likely what most of you will hopefully be able to do today, I'm not signed in with my business account. I'm simply signed in with my devinknight@outlook.com email address. You can see that up in the top right here. This is a personal email, which means it's not using the commercial data protection. And the reason I'm choosing to do this, my demonstrations using this method, is because I assume many of you will be using this same method. This is the free version of Copilot while still being signed in. Okay, so I want to make sure I highlight that. We are at copilot.com, copilot.microsoft.com, and I'm signed in with my personal email address. All right, so that's to prepare you for some of the things that we're going to be doing during the first half of our session. Now, before we go too much further, I want to give you a little bit of an introduction to prompting. But even before that, I want to share a little bit with you about a special offer that we have going on right now. So many of you realize that we have a special on-demand learning system at Pragmatic Works. We've been doing loads of work to add new content as well as add certification preparation within inside of our platform called CertXP. We're really excited about CertXP. We're having lots of great feedback about folks passing exams using CertXP and getting further along in their certification prep. But in addition to that, we are also going to be running a sale from now to the end of the month. So from now until March 31st, 2024, let me make sure I say the year as well. We're going to have a half off sale where you can actually purchase our on-demand learning subscription for a year for half off. To go along with that, because we're so excited, we know, hey, maybe you want to try things out a little bit before you buy. You can also sign up for a trial of our plan. It's really a community plan. It never expires. You can go to it a year from now and you can still view it. But during your community plan trial, while you're on that plan, we're going to give you free access through Sunday, this Sunday, March 24th. I'm looking at my notes on the side here. Through March 24th, we're going to give you free access to all of the Copilot classes that I've been working on of late. So I've been working on lots of new Copilot classes. I'll give you a little peek at some of them that I've been working on right here. Let's bring that over here. So I've been working on loads of new Copilot classes. These will all be free through March 24th. Okay, so just to give you a peek at it, and of course, we would love for you to take advantage and purchase using that 50% off sale, so that way you can have access to these for the whole year. Other thing I want to highlight here is as you're looking at our platform, make sure you check out CertXP. We are launching all sorts of new certifications through our certification platform known as CertXP. We already have a total of 6 of them out here, including ones on Microsoft Fabric. So if you're interested in learning more about Fabric, we have a certification prep test on that, as well as Power BI, Power Platform, and even CompTIA IT Fundamentals. So and Azure as well. So make sure you take a look at that. I think you'll get a lot of benefit from prepping for your certifications. All right, so moving on. Thank you for your patience through that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start talking about prompt engineering. So how do I write prompts within inside of Copilot? I want to give you a few tips on how to do that before we get jumped in. All right, so when it comes to prompt writing, what are prompts? Prompts are essentially the text that you provide your AI assistant, in this case Copilot, to get results back. So you provide text to ask for information or to ask for some kind of a response, and then the results that are returned back are called responses. Those are answers from Copilot sent back to you. And those responses can be anything from giving you a list of ideas to drafting a business plan. But the one thing I'll make sure to warn is any of the responses that you get from AI tools, whether it be Copilot or ChatGPT or really any of them on the market, is don't blindly accept whatever's provided to you. Always do a little bit of trust but verify when it comes to the results that you get from AI models. They're not perfect. They probably never will be perfect. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I have never just blindly taken any results that I get from AI models and just posted it away. There's always some little tinkering I need to do, some little changes I need to make. They're great starting points. They're great places to get started and get some results, but don't blindly use and accept everything that the AI models provide to you. I always use them as a great starting point, but then I make my own changes to them because in many cases, they're not going to give you perfect results. In some cases, you will have to change and fix potential errors that it provides you in the information that it gives you. So that's worth noting. All right, now other tips when it comes to working with AI models, it's a conversation. Think of it like a conversation that you're having with a person. You don't have to provide a big, long paragraph prompt to get what you want. When you're working with tools like Copilot, think of them as an iterative conversation, meaning you can start small, especially when you're new to Copilot. You might start with a very small amount of information or a small prompt, but it's an iterative approach where you can ask more and more and provide more and more clarifying information to get the results you're really looking for. So that's going to be something that's especially helpful to you when you're early on writing prompts. Think of it as an iterative approach where you're going to provide more and more information. Once you get further along with Copilot, you'll probably provide much more context in your very first prompt, but even then, you're still going to have more of an iterative approach. Another big benefit, or not benefit, but another thing to keep in mind is in many cases, you may want to have some kind of a word processor open, like Microsoft Word on the side, to make sure that you have spelling done correctly, to make sure that you have proper grammar as you put things into prompts, especially as you have longer prompts. You want to consider having something like a word processor open, because if you're anything like me, I make spelling mistakes all the time. You're going to see me do lots of copying and pasting of prompts in today's class just because I don't want you to have to watch me type things. Some other fun things that you can do when it comes to prompt writing is you can tell Copilot to do role playing. You can tell Copilot that I want you to act like a marketing director or pretend like you're Steve Jobs or Elon Musk and pretend like you're a certain person and evaluate this business plan that I'm doing. Those are some other fun things that you can do as you work within Copilot. And by the way, it's worth mentioning, we have a new Copilot cheat sheet on our website. My marketing team, I'm sure, will make sure to provide reference links to those. But we have a new Copilot cheat sheet on our website. So if you're trying to learn how to use Copilot, you can use that cheat sheet to be a little bit of a guide on what are some of the things you can plug into a prompt to get the kind of results you're hoping for. So that's some of the things that we've been working on that hopefully will be helpful to you as well. All right. So moving along. So what are some of the kind of prompts that you can write? Well, you can write prompts that will give you content creation. So maybe if you're in marketing or maybe you're trying to write some kind of a plan, Copilot is great for creating content. You can also use Copilot for learning and development. So if you're trying to teach yourself a new skill, you can use Copilot to help you and guide you through learning that new skill. You can even have Copilot quiz you. And you can say, hey, I'm trying to learn about the War of 1812. Quiz me give me 20 quiz questions and let me know if I was right or wrong on those questions. You could do things like that. Copilot's also great for brainstorming and creativity. This is probably one of the areas where I use Copilot most often is when I am stuck and I've kind of hit a roadblock as far as being creative and I need something to kind of give me a little bit of a jolt on the creativity side. Copilot's really great for giving you some ideas to start with. It can also help with decision making and problem solving. So what I mean by that is you could do things like, give me a pros and cons list of this decision I'm thinking about making. And then it'll literally give you a pro and con list of a decision that you're thinking about doing. When it comes to problem solving, you can even copy and paste code that you're having problems with. So I'm going to show an example a little bit later where I'm going to copy and paste some SQL code into Copilot, and it will return back a correction to my code. And I don't even have to tell it what's wrong because I don't know what's wrong. I want Copilot to guide me through how to fix it. So that's something that you can do as well. One of the things that Copilot is most strong at is summarization of things. So Copilot and really generative AI tools in general are great at taking large amounts of text and producing a bullet point list or a summarization of what's covered in this large document. So one of the things we're going to hopefully have time to do today is I want to show you how we can take a very large document, maybe something like a bill that's in U.S. Congress, and I want to summarize what's covered in that bill, just like those congressmen, they probably don't, men and women, they probably don't read all of the document. And so I want to get some kind of summarization of what's covered in this bill in a quick few bullet points. So there's a lot of really fun stuff that you can do as you're working with inside of Copilot. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start to do our first demonstrations with inside of Copilot. What we're going to be doing to start off with is using Copilot from within inside of our web browser. I already hopefully got you queued up to come to this point. We are at the website copilot.microsoft.com. So this is what we covered earlier before the slides. How to get to this website, open up your web browser, whichever web browser you prefer, go to copilot.microsoft.com. And I am signed in with my personal email account, just that way so everyone could potentially follow along, because this, what I'm going to be showing you right now, is all free. Now, I will also be copying and pasting many prompts into the window today. And so because of that, I want to make sure, I'm sure my team has already posted the class files for today in the chat. And I want to give you a little bit of guidance on how to use those class files here. Now, when you download the class files, you can unzip them wherever you want. But the document that I'm going to be referring to a lot today with inside the class files is these instructor examples. You won't have my Word document version of it. You'll have my PDF version. You'll also have a PDF of the slides that I'm showing today as well. But with inside of the class files, there's a PDF called instructor examples. And I'm going to be using the instructor examples files quite a bit to be able to copy and paste prompts into the window so you don't have to watch me type. Okay. So to give you a little peek at what that looks like, I already have that file open right here. And it has a list of prompts that I'm going to be copying and pasting in throughout the day. All right. Now, one thing that's worth remembering, I'm sure this question has probably already come up in the chat because it comes up every time we do a streaming session like this. This session is recorded. So you can even pause me live. You can go back and rewind me a little bit. Don't feel like you're going to fall behind because this session is recorded. And if you're struggling to find where those class files are, don't worry. Once you find them, you can open the document, rewind me, and follow along as you wish, okay? So these sessions are always recorded. All right, so the first thing that I want to kind of walk you through is the idea of how you can use generative AI tools to create content in different styles, in different tones, and to be able to return back results with inside of Copilot that will make you a better writer, make you a writer that can really change your style on a whim. And so the first prompt that we're going to be looking at today, and again, you can find these in my instructor notes PDF file that's inside the class files. The first one that we're going to be looking at today is I want to improve my writing to write in the style of Charles Dickens, famous writer within the US. I know we have some international folks here, but that's a famous writer. And so the prompt that I'm giving it today is I want to write a paragraph that matches the same voice, style, and tone of this text. And what I've provided to it is a very famous paragraph from a book called A Tale of Two Cities. And I'm basically giving it free rein to say, write me another paragraph that follows this kind of writing style is essentially what I'm asking for. So I can go ahead and run the prompt. By the way, there's a couple things I want to highlight here before we just hit go. You'll see in the bottom that there's a submit button right here. Okay, so that's how you submit your prompts. The other thing that's worth highlighting is there's different conversation styles right here as well. So the different conversation styles are going to, behind the scenes, do a few different things. When you choose the creative mode right here, the example I'm doing right now really is probably better served to be in the creative mode. But the creative mode uses ChatGPT-4 Turbo behind the scenes. Not super important, you know the details of that, but just think about using the creative mode whenever you're trying to be creative, right? You're trying to come up with brainstorming ideas, or you're trying to write text and you want it to be ultra creative, then you're going to go to the creative mode. Precise, the one on the far right, is going to be something that you'll use more frequently when you're trying to do something that's more like research-based, you're trying to fact check something, you're trying to write code, it needs to be ultra accurate. Then you want to try and use the precise mode under those circumstances. That also does use ChatGPT-4 Turbo when you use that mode as well. And then in the middle, you'll find the balance mode. The balance mode is when you're trying to kind of, you don't know which route you want to go. You want the results to come back quickly, and you don't really know whether it should be more creative or precise. Just go with the balance mode. That's fine. That is the default behavior here, by the way. Okay. All right. So I wanted to make sure we kind of briefly talked about that with inside of this window. Now we do have, unfortunately, Brian, I'm looking, it doesn't look like I can see the starred questions. I was going to hop over there for a moment. They're not showing up on the tab. No worries. We can keep going. That's okay anyways. We'll try and take a pause later and see if maybe there's some questions you can pull out for us. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to run this prompt, and I'm going to switch to the creative mode. Now, if you use balance mode, no problem, but just notice this is what it looks like when you toggle between them. You'll notice the colors kind of change in the background here. We're going to use the creative mode and tell it that we want to submit this prompt. So when we hit submit, it's going to take and write me a paragraph that matches the voice, style, and tone of Charles Dickens here. And look, just like that, it's giving us brand new content. It's writing new paragraphs of material that's helping me get a little further along. It's giving me new content from really nothing. Now you can continue if you wanted to provide additional context. Maybe you could say, great, you wrote me a new paragraph. Now write me 5 more paragraphs. That could be my next prompt, is I could ask for more to be returned back. That's totally up to you, whether you want to continue this conversation or if you want to start a new conversation. So one of the major tips I have for you early on when it comes to working with Copilot is how to deal with context switching. So what I mean by that is when you're working with inside of Copilot and you're writing a prompt and you kind of continue to write more and more, meaning I could come down here on the bottom and I could say something as simple as write me 5 more paragraphs, right? So I could write something like that. And so when I ask it to write me 5 more paragraphs, it's going to take in the context of what we've already done with inside of this conversation tree here. So it's going to continue to have this additional conversation based on the original prompt, and it knows that I still wanted to do it in the tone of Charles Dickens. However, when you want to switch context, when you want to ask for information that has nothing to do with Charles Dickens, then you'll generally want to use this new topic button in the bottom left. So I'll let it write its 5 paragraphs, and then once it's done, I should be able to, and I can actually do it now, but anytime you want to context switch, you're going to come down to the bottom right and hit new topic, okay? New topic is how you can kind of clear the slate and start new. All right, so let's do that. We saw an example where we could write in a certain tone. That was our first example. But let's say that I want to use this for more business practice. So I'm going to go ahead and hit new topic down at the bottom left, if you're following along with me down here. And I'm going to, this time, you'll notice it resets everything on my screen. And this time, what I want to ask for is for it to write me a blog post. So you'll find my next prompt that you'll find with inside of my instructor notes is it's going to ask for it to write me a blog post about the launch of the new certification preparation tool titled Addictive Certification Prep with CertXP. Write a 1,000-word blog post, including these headlines, how it works, and how to get started. So once you copy and paste that in, again, this is all in the instructor file. You can find my prompts that I've pre-written, and I'll go ahead and hit submit, and it's going to write me a prompt using that criteria. So it's going to write me a blog using that criteria. So it's creating me a 1,000-word blog post, and it's used the title that I asked it to use, and it should also have some headings that I asked for as well. So pretty cool. So it's able to take and bring back results based on a little bit of information that I provided and return that back as a result. Now, the really cool thing is that I mentioned earlier, think of this as a conversation that you can continue to add additional context to. So let's say I really like this blog that it's writing for me. It's still working on it. I really like this blog, but I realized that really to kind of back up the information that it's providing, I want to get some statistics about certifications, right? I'm trying to convince everyone that certification prep is important. And so to convince you of that, I think it would be really helpful if I also had some statistics about why certifications are important for you, not only for you, but also for your employer. So once this is done, it looks like it's about done there. Once it's done, I'm going to prepare to write another prompt on the bottom, and I'll let it kind of finish doing its magic here. It's almost done anyways. But the new prompt that I'm going to write for or provide is that I wanted to provide statistics on why candidates find jobs faster when they have industry certifications, use references to statistics source. So basically provide the source of where you're going to find those statistics. So if I go ahead and throw that in there, this would allow me to provide stats that I can integrate into the blog as well. Now, just like I mentioned earlier, you always want to verify information that's provided to you. So it's important and helpful for you to trust, but verify any information, and maybe it's not necessarily even trust, but just verify the information that's provided to you with inside of Copilot's results. So in this case, though, it looks like it's providing me some really good statistics around why certifications around various industries are important. I'm not going to read through all those, but you can see there's some really good information that it's brought back here for me. All right. All right, this is great. I think this is really good. But what I want to do is I want to switch gears with you a little bit. And I'm going to be hopping around in my instructor notes a little bit. If you're following along there, I'm not necessarily going to do every prompt just because of the time that we have together. But the next example that I want to show you is going to be a little different. We're going to actually launch open the Edge web browser, okay? So I'm going to open up a different web browser. So far, I've been using Google Chrome. But for this next example, we are going to need Edge. So I'm going to open up Edge on my screen, and I'm going to bring it over to the same screen here with us. Let's go ahead and drag that over. My default web page is just msn.com. Before something odd pops up there, let me go ahead and go to the web page I want you to go to with me. So you'll find in my notes, there's a specific web page that we're going to be going to. I'm going to put that web page in the chat here. There we go. So I'm a big fan of Power BI. I'm sure many of you are as well. You likely know Pragmatic Works is very big into Power BI. And so we're going to go to the Power BI blog. You can navigate to any web page you want for this. It doesn't have to be the same one as me. But I have a particular link to the Power BI blog and the updates that were released with Power BI back in February. Now, as part of my organization, because I consider myself to be very proficient in Power BI, one of the things that my organization has tasked me with is updating the rest of my group about what are some of the new things that have come out with Power BI most recently. And because I have to prepare that presentation, let's say I do a presentation once a month to my group about all the new things with Power BI, because I need to do that preparation, I want to use Copilot to help me prepare for that presentation that I'm going to do to my group. So the way that you can leverage Edge, and the thing that I'm going to do a little bit different with you this time, is I'm going to show you how within inside of your web browser, when using Microsoft Edge, you can use Copilot to look at the information that you have on the web page you're looking at, to write prompts and to return back results based on the information in the website you're looking at, the web page you're looking at. So while I'm looking at this particular web page, and if you can make me go full screen on my demo screen for this, while you're looking at a particular web page, you're going to want to look at, within inside of Microsoft Edge, there is a button found in the top right-hand corner for Copilot. This is part of the latest version of Edge. So if your organization is a little behind on updating Microsoft Edge, then you may not see this, but this is part of the latest versions of Microsoft Edge. It's actually been there for quite some time now. And if you go to click on that, you'll see Copilot will pop out on the right-hand side of your screen. If you could move my camera just so I'm not covering this up, that'd be great. Thank you. Appreciate that. So this is the Copilot window, and this is very similar to what we saw at copilot.microsoft.com, but I will note here, you'll see that it does have the commercial data protection piece enabled, meaning this is signed in with my work account. If you're signed in with your personal account, that's fine as well. Now, while you're inside of the Copilot window, we can write prompts to help me prepare for this weekly meeting or monthly meeting that I use for updating my team on the changes with Power BI. So I have a prompt with inside of my notes that you can use, and it says weekly meeting, but that's okay. Here's the prompt that I wrote. It says, we run a weekly lunch and learn with our Power BI users where we discuss what is new with the tool. Please write a short email invitation for Thursday at 11:30 to 12:30, encouraging people to join based on what is on this page. So what that will allow me to do, if I run that prompt, is it will look at the information on this page and create an invite. Now, we could even take it a step further after it's done, and we could even have it start to help me create a presentation. So I can have it start to create information or pull information from this that will help me in my presentation that I'm eventually going to create. So here it is. It's creating this invite. The subject is join our Power BI Lunch and Learn session this Thursday. Dear Power BI enthusiasts, and you can let it read on and on and on. It went even so far, this is interesting, it went even so far to put a location. Conference room B, 3rd floor. I don't know where it got that information, but that's that non-deterministic element of Copilot where it completely made that up in whole cloth. I am on a single floor building right now, so I don't know where it got that, but kind of fun stuff. So here you can see it's produced this great invite. Here's some of the things that we're going to cover during our session. And it's going to cover things like visual calculations, Fabric Copilot for Power BI, dynamic subscriptions, all kinds of really good stuff as far as what is going to be covered within the session. And then if I want to take it a step further, I could tell Copilot that I wanted to now, zoom back in on this, I wanted to now draft the content for a PowerPoint presentation on this topic with up to 5 slides and bullet points. So because I'm doing this in the web browser, it's not going to physically create a PowerPoint slide deck for me. However, that is something that I could do using the paid version of Copilot from within inside of Microsoft 365. So we'll talk about something like this that you can do with inside of PowerPoint a little bit later. But let's go ahead and hit this. It's going to create some content for me that I can bring into a PowerPoint slide deck. Let's see what it's going to return back here for me. And while that's going, I'm going to go ahead and queue up my next example. All right. Got it. Actually, I'm going to skip forward a couple examples. Yeah, let's go down to this one. All right, good deal. So it looks like it's creating some information that I can put on each of the slides with inside of my PowerPoint deck that I'm going to create. Pretty good stuff. I could copy and paste this into PowerPoint if I wanted to. I like what it's doing. It's going to give me hopefully a total of 5 slides based on what I asked for. And then this is essentially helping save loads of time. Imagine how much time it would take me to kind of pull in this information. It's distilled that rather quickly here for me. So really good stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to let that finish doing its magic, but I'm going to go to another URL. And my colleagues that are following along in the chat here, that are helping me in the chat, this is actually the second URL. This is a YouTube video that I'm going to be using. This is the second YouTube video, by the way. If you're looking at my notes, I skipped one just for interest of time here. And what this is going to allow me to do, what we're going to do in this next example, is show how I can use Copilot to summarize information from a YouTube video. So this is a YouTube video, one of my colleagues, Mitchell Pearson, which, by the way, this is a great time, marketing team. Hopefully you're ready for this. Mitchell is going to be doing our next Learn with a Nerd session on April 11th on visual calculations in Power BI. So we mentioned that a little while ago, that's actually a new feature within Power BI that just came out in February. Mitchell's going to be doing an hour-and-a-half session on April 11th on visual calculations and how it really makes some of the things that you would have done in DAX in the past a lot easier. You'll see there's a QR code below me here. My folks on my team will also be putting in the chat a more direct link if you prefer. But I highly recommend attending that. If you haven't looked at visual calculations with inside of Power BI, there's some really amazing things you can do with it. So highly recommend you registering for our next Learn with the Nerd session. Again, that's going to be on April 11th. So make sure you check that out. All right. Having said that, let's get back to our demo. So in our demo, I have a YouTube video up of Mitchell Pearson. This is not on visual calculations yet. But what I'd like to do is I want to take this YouTube video and I want to summarize the video. So using Copilot, again, on the right-hand side of the screen, I can come over on the right and I can simply say, summarize this video. Okay, and hit go, hit enter. All right, so it's going to go ahead and do its magic. It's going to look, but essentially what it's doing behind the scenes is it's going to grab the transcript for this video, and using the transcript, it's going to help me summarize what's happening with inside of this video. So we'll give that a few moments to do its magic. Sometimes it can help to actually flip to one of the different modes with Copilot, the different conversation styles that we talked about that you see at the top of the screen. But let's see what it's able to do under the balanced mode here first. Now, the other thing that's interesting, and I'm stalling a little bit. Sometimes Copilot will take longer than other times. It looks like here it's finally kind of pulling itself together. But here it's actually giving me a nice summary of what's covered in the video. It's even time-stamped it. Here's what's covered in the first 4 minutes. The video provides a tutorial on merging tables using Power Query. Great. Then it's going to go ahead and provide the next section of what's covered in the video and a summary of that. So some really good stuff here. I don't even have to watch the video. I'm sure many of you are big Mitchell Pearson fans like I am, but if I didn't want to, I could actually have Copilot summarize some of what's covered in the video for me here. So really good stuff. All right, I'm going to stop the response here because I want to move on to my next demo here. And I'll even hit new topic down in the bottom right here just so we can kind of clear the screen, because this is a really cool thing I want to show you next. The thing I want to show you next is how you can use Copilot with images to be able to tell you how to get to certain points on the screen. So look at the video I have on screen right now. And I've kind of time-stamped it to this particular point with inside the video. And one of the really neat things that you can do is you can take screenshots with inside of Copilot. Right here, you'll see add an image. And what that will allow me to do is I can take a screenshot, or you can even, sorry, it's right here. I'm mistaken, where it says add a screenshot. I was a little off here. It's right here. This one. Uh-oh, wrong button. Sorry, guys. Let's clear that. There we go. Add a screenshot. Sorry, I used the wrong button there. My screen went black. Add a screenshot. If you click on add a screenshot, watch what happens within your web browser here. Now your web browser has a screenshotting tool built in from Copilot, and I can take a screenshot of the video where Mitchell is demonstrating something right here. Tell it that, yes, I want this screenshot right here. You can click the little done button right here whenever you got the screenshot you want. So I'll hit done. It's going to upload my screenshot. And then what I can tell or ask Copilot is, how can I navigate to this screen in my Power BI desktop from this screen displayed in the video? All right, so if I hit go on that, it's going to look at the screenshot, and it's going to give me instructions on how do I get to where Mitchell's showing this. Maybe I jumped further along in the video, or maybe I missed something Mitchell showed. You know, it's a video, I could always rewind, but I could also leverage Copilot to help me find things faster as well. So really, really cool stuff that we can do there. And there it goes. So getting started, if you're new to Power BI, in this video, so it looks like it's kind of showing me some techniques. While in full screen mode, yeah, it's giving me a bunch of information here. It looks like, this is one of those non-deterministic steps here, because I have run the same prompt in the past, and it gave me exactly click for click how to get to where I'm at. It doesn't look like it did as good of a job of that this time, but under normal circumstances when I've run that, it gives me exact steps on how to get there. Let me try it one more time. Let's do it just one more time. And I forgot to add the screenshot, but that's okay. So that kind of shows you some of the pros and cons of what you're going to experience with Copilot. Copilot, actually, it's doing a better job this time. To navigate the Power Query screen, there we go. That's way better this time. I just needed to kind of fine-tune my prompt a little bit. But this time, it's actually showing me how do I get to where Mitchell's showing on the screen. So pretty much better results that second time I ran it. All right, very good. All right, so that's looking good. I think that's lots of kind of fun stuff that we can do around Copilot. There's loads of other prompts, by the way, that you can explore with inside of my not my cheat sheet, but my instructor notes. I want to make sure that we have time to cover lots of other things. So if you want to explore more inside my instructor notes, just note I have loads of other examples on using Copilot for brainstorming, for helping make decisions, for summarizing. There's all kinds of really fun stuff that you can do with Copilot. I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your time, though, and there's a lot of other fun things I want to show you here. So I do want to switch gears a little bit, but I do encourage you to look at the instructor examples file that I have with inside the class files to learn more about other things that you can do as you're working with inside a Copilot. All right, but I told you I want to switch gears here a little bit. What I want to do next is I'm going to close out my web browser, and I want to switch gears and start talking about the Microsoft 365 Copilot. So let me bring up the slides here a little bit. As a quick reminder, this is the paid version of Copilot that I'm about to be switching to. So anytime you see Copilot for Microsoft 365, that is a reference to the paid version of Copilot. So as a little reminder, this is what you saw on the slide I shared earlier, talking about the free version of Copilot, which I primarily showed so far, to what we're about to be jumping into is the paid version of Copilot. And there's some really cool things you can do with the paid version of Copilot. So that's why I'm switching gears here a little bit. I really want you to see some of the amazing things that you can do with the paid version of Copilot. And some of the major benefits that we're going to be highlighting here are these three items here. One is the integration into some of the Office products like Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, all of those Office products integration, including Teams. And then also showing you the Microsoft Graph capabilities. So as a reminder, what Microsoft Graph allows you to do with inside of Copilot is connect into Teams chats in your email and files you have saved in OneDrive or SharePoint Online, and be able to return back information from those items inside of your Copilot prompts and responses. So that's some of the big benefit that you get from the paid versions of Copilot. All right, so here's what we're going to be doing. By the way, there's lots of things. If you want to explore my slides a little bit more, I talk a lot more about the different things that you can do with Copilot in Word, in Excel, in PowerPoint. You can read my slides on your own. I want to show you this stuff in action, right? Demos speak louder than slides. So I think I just coined a new phrase there. Demos speak louder than slides. So we're going to do that. I'm going to get rid of my slides here. You can explore slides on your own. let's start to look at some of the different ways we can use Copilot in these various tools that Microsoft offers, starting with one that you probably use on a very regular basis, Microsoft Word. So I'm going to be opening up on my screen here, Microsoft Word. Looks like it's opening on my other screen, so let's pull it over to the correct window here. All right, and so before we even get started, I want to highlight what you need for these next set of demonstrations. These next set of demonstrations, I am using Copilot for Microsoft 365. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, this is the paid version of Copilot. So if you have only free Copilot, this might be a little bit of a roadblock for you until you purchase Copilot. Now, what needs to happen whenever your company purchases Copilot? Your administrator, they might be the one that's responsible for purchasing Copilot and assigning licenses. So your office administrator will need to assign the Copilot for Microsoft 365 license to your account. And you'll also need to have a Microsoft 365 license as well. So Microsoft 365 is basically the license to all of the Office products. So when you go to connect into Outlook, Word, OneNote, you're connecting in likely using either Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Either one of those are a prerequisite to being able to use the Copilot for Microsoft 365. You've got to have the Office products first, and then you need to have the additional license of Copilot for Microsoft 365. Once your administrator has assigned that license to you, and you go to open up your Office products, you may not initially see the Copilot tools. So whenever you go to open up Word, Excel, OneNote, if you don't see Copilot right away, that might mean you need to refresh your license within inside of the Office tool itself. So let me start by showing you that. So when you open up Office, you're hoping to see the Copilot button up here in the top right. When I said Office, I meant Word. When you go to open up Word, you're hoping to see this Copilot button up in the top right. If you don't see it, then that means that you likely need to refresh your license after the Copilot license has been assigned to you by your administrator. How do you do that? Well, to refresh your license, you're going to go to the File menu on the top left, right here, scroll down, and find Update License. This is actually sorry, I can't do the drawing at the same time, but you'll see this Copilot license button right here, or update license button. That update license button is one of the things you can press to make sure that it updates and refreshes your license. You can also go under the account section here if you don't see update license, and underneath the account section, you'll see there is an update license button right here. Okay. So the point I'm trying to make is before you can get started with Copilot, you may need to come into each of the tools, not just Word, not just OneNote, each of them individually. You'll likely need to come in and hit the update license button, and then you'll need to re-sign in with your work account. Okay. Once you sign in again, you'll close Word, reopen Word, or whatever the Office product is that you're working on, and then you should see the Copilot button after you do that. So your end goal here is you want to see this Copilot button in the top right. All right. Once you see that, you should also likely see when you're dealing with Microsoft Word, you'll see this little interface in the middle of your screen here as well, where it says select the icon, that would be this icon right here, or press Alt-I to draft with Copilot. So I can either click on this button and it will pop open the Draft with Copilot window, or I can click Alt-I and it will launch the same exact window. So just whatever your preference is. If you like hotkeys, great, use the hotkey. If you prefer to click the button, no problem, do that. All right, so here's the first prompt that we're going to do with inside of Microsoft Word. We're going to use this from a creativity standpoint to help me write a class. At Pragmatic Works, we're obviously a training company. And so I'm going to use this to help draft an outline for a new course for me. So the new course that I'm creating is one around data literacy. This is from my notes. You'll scroll way down in my notes. You'll see there's a Copilot in Word section. And I skipped a bunch here just for interest of time. And we're going to be looking at the Copilot in Word section of my instructor notes. So I'm going to tell it that I want to write an outline for a course on the importance of data literacy in organizations. That's my simple prompt that I'm going to start with. And then we're going to iterate a little bit and I'm going to ask for more information. So to run this, we'll hit the generate button right here. It'll take a few moments and it's going to actually write me a outline within inside of Word for that topic that I asked for. So we'll give that a few moments to do its thing. And while it's doing its magic, I'm going to go ahead and get my next prompt ready to go. Sometimes it can take a little while, by the way. Usually it's within 30 seconds or so, you should start to see results. So if it takes a little longer for you, sometimes you might need to even close Word and reopen it. That happens. Remember, Copilot's very new still, so you may need to, in some cases, close it and reopen. But look at here. Here we go. We got a list of modules created for me. Remember the non-deterministic capabilities of Copilot. If you are able to follow along, you may see different results than me. So don't expect that your outline is going to be exactly the same as me. Non-deterministic means that you can run this prompt, I can run this prompt, and we could get vastly different results. In fact, this is very different than what I saw in the past whenever I ran this. All right, but here it goes. We got a prompt that's returned back, or a result that is returned back, and it looks pretty good. I kind of like what it's brought back here for me. If I like the results, I can come down here at the bottom and I can tell it that I want to keep the results, or I can ask it to regenerate the results. Maybe I want it to try again, or if I don't like it at all, I can discard them. So I'm going to go ahead and ask it to regenerate. Maybe I'm not a huge fan of what it did. I'm going to go ahead and tell it, go try again. Give me a better result than this. Maybe I wasn't super happy with it. So Copilot is now going to try again using the same prompt, and let's see what we get this time. So a little bit different, right? The top part looks very similar to the first time, but I can already tell that the next section after the introduction is a little bit different this time. So it looks like it's doing, it's at least all here, it's giving me a different set of results. It's giving me alternatives that I can work with. If I didn't like the results the first time, I can ask for alternatives essentially here, and we can see what it's done there for me. Looks pretty good. Now, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you can see in the bottom here, of course, that I can select that I want to keep it. Or you can toggle back and forth between the different results. So you can see right now I'm looking at 2 of 2, but I can hit the back button and I can look at the previous draft and I can compare the first draft to the second draft. And you can decide which one you like better and compare the two by toggling back and forth between them. I can also, remember the idea of making this an iterative approach, I can iterate through and give more details. So I can go back over to the little prompt window here. Let me show you how I got there. All I did was I clicked in the window right here, the prompting window, and I can click in there and I can paste in my next prompt. My next prompt is going to say to include durations of each module and make the course no more than 4 hours long. So I can add that prompt in here, give it additional context, and it's going to rewrite my outline once again. Hopefully it's going to be very similar to what we have, but it's going to include the duration for how long each of the modules is going to take. So pretty good stuff. So let's see what it does here. It's thinking on it now. There it goes. Introduction is going to take 30 minutes. Data sources and types is going to take 60 minutes. Data analysis and visualizations is going to take another 90 minutes. And then data culture and collaboration is 60 minutes. Pretty good. I like that. So now it's told me how long each of those modules are going to actually take. So once you're happy with the results, again, you can come down to the bottom here. You can tell you want to keep it. You can also edit the prompts here. So you can click on that little pencil icon and that will allow you to edit the prompt. So maybe you made a mistake or a typo. You can edit the prompt there if you want. But if you are happy with it, you can go ahead and select keep. And I'll select keep it here. So this, now the Copilot window disappears and I am able to just kind of interact with this outline that it gave me as if this is the only thing I have. Now, there's some other fun things that you can do as well. So for instance, I can select portions of what I have on my screen here. So let's say I grab portions of this, or I can even select the whole thing if I wanted to. You can select the whole thing. Let's do that. I'm going to highlight the whole outline. And you'll notice that the Copilot button still appears over here on the left when you go to highlight things. So you can actually rewrite sections with Copilot. If I wanted to just highlight one module, I could highlight just that one module and rewrite that one. Or you can highlight the whole thing and I can tell it that I want to visualize this as a table. So what that does is it'll put all the information that I have here and organize it in a table, which in many cases can take up less space than what you might have now. But you have that Copilot button here once you highlight text to either rewrite certain elements of text or even visualize it in a table. So I'm going to say visualize as table, and then let's see what happens when I tell it to visualize this information as a table. Sometimes it does a good job, sometimes not so much. Yeah, let's see what it does this time. All right, that's not too bad actually. So I can see each of the different sections here. We have an introduction, duration, the section, the duration, the topic. It has the name of it, the duration, and the topic all visualized here in a table for me. And you'll notice it actually takes up a little bit less space when we do that. So it takes up about 1 page versus a page and a half like it did before. So pretty cool to be able to just highlight a certain section of information and then have Copilot do some magic there for you. Really, really cool stuff. All right, so let's do this. That's a little bit of Word. One thing I do really, really want to highlight is some of the neat capabilities that you have within Copilot for Microsoft 365 to reference other files that you have. So for instance, let's actually create a total, you can trash this, throw this away if you want. I'm going to get rid of this Word document. I'm not going to save it, but I could also open up another instance of Word. So let's open up a fresh Word instance here. And what I can do in this example is I can tell Copilot that I want to reference a particular file that I have. So if I open up Draft with Copilot again, which is Alt-I, I can tell Copilot that I want to reference a particular file. You'll see there's a file reference button right here. You can also reference files whenever you're just interacting with the prompt window. So I could say something like, write me a detailed review. Let's zoom in on this for you. Write me a detailed review of Disney World based on the document. And then here's how you reference a file. If you use / with inside of a prompting window, this / capability is only available for Copilot for Microsoft 365. So if you don't have the paid version of Copilot, the $30 a month version, you won't be able to do this. But if you do, what you have this new capability to do is I can hit / here, and I can type in a file that I want to reference. So here's a file right here called Module 4 Disney Suggestions, and I can reference that file that I have saved in OneDrive and tell Copilot to generate this review, and let's see what happens. So I'm pointing to another document that I have saved in OneDrive, and I can use Copilot for Microsoft 365 to get new information or new text based on this review of Disney World. So a little bit backstory here. One of our colleagues at Pragmatic Works, Jeremy, who's on our sales team, he and his family were making a trip to Disney World, and he asked my recommendation. So I wrote up a little document on my own before Copilot, and now I'm using that document to kind of create PowerPoint slides, to create Word documents, all sorts of stuff here. Now I'm able to reference and use by leveraging Copilot for Microsoft 365. So look at this. I'm getting each of the parks. It's writing me a nice little paragraph here on each of them, a little bit on Magic Kingdom, a little bit on Hollywood Studios, a little bit on Epcot coming through. So really the power of what I wanted to show you with that demo is simply using that / within the prompting window allows me to reference files I have saved in SharePoint Online, in OneDrive, in a Teams location. That allows me to now integrate in other files as part of the responses that Microsoft Copilot uses. So really, really cool stuff. All right, I think that's it for Word. Again, we can look at the results here if we really wanted to, but I think you kind of get the idea of what we're able to do with inside of Word. There's actually lots of other stuff that we can do in Word. I highly recommend that you look at our on-demand learning, which remember, you'll have free access to all of our Copilot classes through Sunday of this week. So through March 24th, you'll have access to all of our Copilot classes for free. Microsoft Word is one of them if you want to explore more of what we can do there. But Pragmatic Works is known for our data analyst capabilities and our data analytics capabilities, as well as Power Platform. So I want to go to Excel. Everybody loves Excel, right? So let's take a look at what we can do with inside of Excel. Now, when it comes to Copilot for Excel, one of the things that you need to know as a prerequisite is that the files that you use Copilot on need to be saved with inside of OneDrive or SharePoint. So what I'm trying to pull up here kind of on the side briefly is I had my OneDrive location already open. Let's see if I can find it handily here. No, it's not it. If I have to open it again, that's fine. There it is. I found it. So I have a file here inside of OneDrive. And this is actually a file that I've shared with you within the class files. The only thing that you would need to do to follow along with this example is you would need to put that file within inside of either SharePoint Online or OneDrive. This file is called safety data. And if you're looking within the class files that we've provided you, let me find that handy here again. If you're looking within inside the class files that we provided you, you'll find it under the resources folder. So I created a resources folder for you that has all kinds of references that you can take advantage of, lots of files, including my Disney file that I mentioned earlier. If you're really curious what things I like at Disney, you can check that out. But inside the class files, you'll find there is a resources folder. And that resources folder has lots of files, including this one called safety data that I'm about to show you right now. All right, so your file must be saved in OneDrive or SharePoint when it comes to Excel. And the other prerequisite is it has to be either an XLSX or an XLSM file, meaning the file extension. You can't use an XLS file extension. Okay, so the file extension is also an important caveat to you doing this. But I'm going to go ahead and open up this tool within my web browser. You can open it from the desktop version of Excel as well, but I'm going to open it from my web browser. I've actually had better luck with the web browser version of Excel, the Excel Online versus the desktop version, just a side note there. But once you open up this file within inside of your web browser, you'll then find the Copilot button right here, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and select Copilot with this Excel file I have that's looking at safety data. And the safety data that we're looking at, if you can move my head, looks like I'm blocking the Copilot window. Thank you, whoever's got that. What we can do with inside of Copilot is we can ask for information about the data within inside this Excel file. We can also ask for it to create new charts for us. We can ask for it to write formulas for us. We can ask for it to find outliers in the data. There's all kinds of fun stuff that you can do when you're working with inside of Copilot for Excel. So the first thing that you'll have to do whenever you go to click on the Copilot button, the first thing you'll be prompted for is that whenever you go to work with data with inside of Copilot, the data must be inside of an Excel table. I purposely created a file that was not inside of an Excel table because I wanted you to see this warning. So the first thing I need to do is convert the data that we're looking at to an Excel table. So I'm going to go ahead and hit convert. There we go. So Copilot put my data inside of an Excel table for me. Good start. Now, the next thing I can do is I can look over at the capabilities we have here, and you'll see that I could ask for it to show me some data insights. So I'm going to go ahead and tell Copilot, show data insights, and let's see what it finds in the data. What kind of insights is it going to find for me? So the first insights that we're going to see here is hopefully it should produce some kind of chart for me, some visuals for me, and some insights that might be interesting to me with inside of this safety data that we have. So we'll give that a few moments. There we go. All right, this is all sample data, by the way. This is not real. But you can see here, it looks like it's produced a chart for me showing me the incident cost. So how much these accidents are costing me, or incidents, if we want to be politically correct about it, how much these incidents are costing me by age group. So it looks like the age group of 25 to 34 are causing the most expensive incidents at our organization. If I'm really interested and maybe I like that chart, you can actually select that you want it to be added to a sheet. So if I hit add to a new sheet right here, it will create a new Excel sheet for me and it'll put that information inside of the Excel sheet. Looks pretty good. If you don't like what it did, you can always hit undo or you can go back to the table you came from, but you can use and leverage that to be able to pull back additional information. Okay. All right. Looks good. The other thing I want to ask with inside of Copilot is I want to find and see, are there any other insights that it can provide me? So can I see another insight? Let's ask for. So if I ask for more insights, now it's going to show me incident cost by day and weekday. So which weekdays are causing the most incidents? I can add that one into a new sheet as well. And you can move those sheets around. You can add the visuals to the same sheet. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can do there. All right. Very cool. All right. Some of the other stuff that you can do is you can ask for outliers. So I can say, are there any outliers in my data? And hit go, and let's see what it finds as far as outliers. Oh, I said date. I meant in my data, not date. We'll see how that works. Little goof up there. That's why you don't type on your demos, right? So I broke my own rule there and I typed in my demo, but actually it still worked. You can see it probably figured out what I was trying to get to here, is it did find some outliers in the data that we have here. So it looks like for lost time incident costs has outliers on February 10th, October 13th, and March 17th. So it was able to find some outliers in the data. Very cool. Some other fun things that you can do is you can use Copilot here and you can ask Copilot to highlight the most expensive incidents. So I could say highlight the top 10 incident costs. Tell it to highlight that. And if I zoom out, we should see it start to highlight some of the cells within inside of our data set here. Give that a few moments. Let's see what it does. Come on, Copilot. There it goes. So Copilot has actually highlighted the top 10 most expensive incidents that have occurred. I could take that a step further, and I can go back into Copilot, and I can tell Copilot that I want to sort the data. And I want to sort by incident cost in descending order. All right, so now it should resort the data in here as well if we wanted to. Give that a few moments. And then the other cool thing that we could do is we can there it goes. Now it's sorting it. That looks like it highlighted way more than 10 though, didn't it? Yeah, something's not right there. Something's a little fishy there, but it did resort my data. By the way, I have run this demo before and it did highlight 10. So this is another case where maybe you need to run it more than once. Maybe you need to also double check that Copilot's doing what you said it should be doing. Always verify it did the right thing, because I should have gone back and undid that first highlighting because it highlighted more than 10. All right, so let's say that we also want to use Copilot to write formulas for us. You can absolutely do that. I can say that I want to add, let's zoom in on this for you. I want to add a column with the percent of total by injury location. So you can actually I want to know the percentage of incidents that are happening by location, and it will create a formula for me that will calculate that. This particular demo, I've done a couple times and I've gotten different results. So again, like I've mentioned, always double check that it's producing the results you think it's going to produce. All right, well, this time it said it needed a little bit more information. So let's try an alternative one here. I'm going to tell it that I want to add a column that combines the plant and department. I'm pivoting a little bit because that particular one didn't seem to produce favorable results in this live demo. I've done it recorded and it worked just fine, but let's see what it does here when I tell it to combine the plant and department together. All right, so it says Copilot is generating a formula suggestions. Let's see what it does for me. Give it a few more seconds. And come on, Copilot, you can do it. Oh, so one of the things I have found is in some case, there it goes. It just took a little while. Sometimes you do have to refresh your browser if you're working in the online version of Copilot. It looks like it worked there. So here it finally did return back. Here's a combination where it's combining the plant and the department together with a space. You can insert the column here. Look at this. Whenever you hover above insert column, notice it's kind of giving you a little preview of what it's about to do. Look at that in column O on the left-hand side there. And when you want to actually do it, you can hit insert column and it'll add that new column into your spreadsheet here or your workbook. So it looked pretty good. So there's the main things that you can do in Excel is you can use Copilot to write formulas and functions for you. You can use it to do formatting, and you can also use it to find trends and outliers in your data as well. All right, we got 15 minutes left, so I want to move to our next topic. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. Let's look at PowerPoint. So I'm going to launch PowerPoint this time. I'm going to do it from the desktop tool. Just like I showed you whenever we worked with inside of Word. Remember when we were inside of Microsoft Word that we needed to go refresh or update our license to make sure that we see the Copilot button. So if you don't see the Copilot button like I'm seeing right here, then you want to double check that you refresh your license to make sure that you have the paid Microsoft 365 version of Copilot showing up. But once you do, you can hit that Copilot button and you'll get a little prompt window appears over on the right-hand side. So here's my prompting window now appearing over on the right. And what I want to do with inside of Copilot is I want to use it to build some presentations. So for example, let's go back to that idea of the Disney suggestions that I created earlier. Maybe I told you that I wrote those suggestions for things that I wanted my colleague Jeremy to know about visiting Disney World. And so maybe I'm really, really detailed on, and I love Disney World. And so I want to be able to create a PowerPoint presentation telling him all the things that he should go visit while he's at Disney World. So what I can do is I can use PowerPoint in the prompting window with inside of PowerPoint, and I can tell it that I want to create a slide deck using the information found in, and then remember what I taught you earlier about referencing other files, you'll use the / to reference a file that you have saved in OneDrive or SharePoint Online or in Teams. So if I use the // here, you're going to see a prompt window come up, or a reference file come up, and I can actually go look at files that I have pre-saved here. So here's one called Module 4 Disney Suggestions. I'm going to suggest that one. And you can see it has my file reference there that I can now use. If I hit send, it'll take a few moments, but it's going to create a PowerPoint presentation for me based on the information that it can find within inside of that Word document that I have saved in OneDrive. It does take a little bit of time. It's doing some pretty hard work here, right? It's creating some PowerPoint for me. And so it's got a lot to kind of churn through and look at to be able to produce this. But after a few moments, we're going to start to see it create a presentation here for me. So here it goes. It says drafting a presentation. It's giving me a little bit of an outline of what the presentation is going to look like. So you're seeing the outline show up on the window on the right-hand side. And then now it's actually creating PowerPoint slides. So it's generating those slides for me. And after a few moments, looks like it's almost done. It will actually create and show me slides based on that Word document. So we'll give it a few moments to do that. Now, once it creates the PowerPoint slides, a couple other things that we can do is we can ask it to create speaker notes for you. So you can actually have it create new notes within inside of the speaker notes section. So when if you've ever done a presentation before, you know that you have within inside a PowerPoint, you can put your own notes that you want just for yourself to see, but not everyone else to see. You can have Copilot write those notes for you, or at least begin creating those notes for you. You can also do things like apply transitions between slides. So you can have it create transitions where it has some kind of swooping effect or something like that. Hopefully you're not doing that, but you can. You can have it create agenda slides for you. You can have it create sections. You can also have it edit existing slides that you have as well. So you don't have to necessarily create new slides. You can also edit existing slides for you. Looks like it's actually going to be adding speaker notes for me even from the get-go here. So let's see what it did. So it created 13 slides for me. Wow, that's pretty good. 13 slides. It's got an agenda slide for me here. It's also got slides on what you should do. What are the must-dos within Magic Kingdom? What are the things you should do if you have time? What are the things that you should do as far as eating at Magic Kingdom? Then it switches over to Hollywood Studios. What are the rides I should do at Hollywood Studios if you have time? Really good stuff, right? This is pretty good in a short amount of time here. And it said it created notes for me. Let's see if I can actually find some notes. Yeah, it did. Look at this. So if you click on the notes section of PowerPoint, the notes section is right here, by the way. If I click on notes, you'll see that it actually gave me some notes on what I could say on these slides. Pretty good stuff, right? That's awesome. I love it. So I'm not very good at creating PowerPoint, but this at least gave me a good start, right? I don't have to create this from scratch. I can leverage this. I can make it my own, of course, right? You can change this and edit it from here, but at least it's given me a good starting place when it comes to working within, sorry, I didn't even mean to zoom in on that. It's given me a good starting point when it comes to working with inside of PowerPoint. So good stuff. It's awesome here. All right, I think we're done with PowerPoint. Again, check out the class I have on Copilot and PowerPoint. Lots more there to learn. All right, we got about 10 minutes. And I want to show you at least 2 more versions of Copilot, maybe 3 if we have time. The next one that I want to show you is Copilot in Microsoft Teams. This is probably one of the areas of Copilot and really Microsoft 365 in general, where you can get the most advantage out of Copilot. So if you remember earlier on in the session, I talked about how Copilot is really good at summarizing things. And take that in mind and think about how you can summarize things within inside of meetings that you have. So if you're anything like me, you're probably going and hopping from meeting to meeting and to meeting, and you're trying to find a time just to go to the restroom, I'm sure. So in some cases, you're probably late to a subsequent meeting just because you're running behind from the previous one. Well, you can actually leverage Copilot inside of Microsoft Teams to be able to give you an advantage. And if you're late to a meeting, you can leverage Copilot to tell you what you missed and to summarize and recap what's happened in the meeting so far. And if you just outright miss the meeting in total, you can use Copilot as long as you run transcripts and record the meeting. You can even use Copilot to later come back to that meeting weeks later and find out what was talked about in that meeting if you missed it. So here's what I'd like to show you. Keep on camera with me for a moment. Sorry, director. Keep on me for a moment because I'm going to do a few things off screen here that I don't necessarily want everyone to see. But I'm going to go pull up with inside of Microsoft Teams. I'm going to go back to a meeting that I had back on February 21st, where I actually created a class on Copilot and Teams. And I had a meeting with one of my colleagues here at Pragmatic Works. All right, you can show my screen again. Thank you, Director. This is a meeting with inside of Microsoft Teams that I had around a fake business idea that we were discussing. We were discussing the idea of an internet cafe. That seems like something that you might have heard about 20 years ago, internet cafes. But one of my colleagues, Blake Dudley, had the idea. He wants to open up a new, unique way of doing an internet cafe. So we had about a 15-minute meeting. And I want to be able to come back to that meeting now and recap it and use Copilot to give me information about what was discussed during that meeting weeks later even. So here's what we're going to do. With inside of this meeting, this is inside of Microsoft Teams that I'm showing right now. You would go to your calendar with inside of Teams and find a particular meeting that was recorded. So the meeting does need to be recorded for some of the things I'm about to show you. Then I would go up to the recap section of the meeting found right here. I'm trying to zoom in on it. There we go. You would go up to the recap part of your meeting. All right. So I'm going to go up to recap. That may not appear for you if you didn't record the meeting. So that's another thing. If you don't see recap, that may be why. So here's the recording for the meeting. And a couple really cool things I'll notice is one, you can see there's a transcript for the meeting. So I can see the full transcript here because we recorded the meeting from the very beginning. And the other thing that you'll notice over here towards the bottom is I can see when all of these individuals were speaking. Some of the information that you're seeing here, thank you, sorry, Director, for having so many movement on my screen. But some of the things you'll see here is when each of the individuals were actually talking. So if I want to see when Blake was talking, when Tyler was talking, when Devin was talking, I can go to the bottom here and see when those moments were, and I can actually skip forward to them here if I wanted to. So I can click on those, and it'll take me to moments in the meeting where those individuals were talking. Now to the Copilot part. So again, if you don't mind moving my face for a moment, because I'm going to launch open Copilot on the screen. And when I go to click on Copilot right here, it will allow me to ask provide prompts that will return back information that occurred during this meeting. Now, I've done this before for this meeting, so you're seeing a few things in here where I've done this in the past. But what I can do is I can ask for things like list, let's zoom in on this so you can see it, list action items from this meeting. So list action items. It'll take a few moments, and then it should list out action items from the meeting. So we'll give that a few moments to do its thing. There we go. So here's the action items for the internet cafe idea. Tyler's going to install computer stations. Devin is going to do TVs with furniture. Blake is going to have an ice cream bar. Way to go, Blake. I like Blake's idea there. And then we're also going to furnish a movie theater. So this is a new take on internet cafes here. All right, so let's see. What else could I do here? I'm going to say, where did we disagree? Where did we disagree on this topic? Hit go. So it'll actually find, by reading the transcripts, areas where we disagreed with each other and return those back with inside of Copilot's prompting window here as well. So we'll give that a few moments. All right, so here's the areas where we disagreed. The feasibility and desirability of having ice cream on keyboards. Tyler and Devin thought it was a potential disaster, while Blake liked the idea of sharing ice cream with friends. Oh, that's cute, Blake. The target demographic for Internet Cafe, you briefly discussed the possibility of attracting 40-plus-year-olds who are less tech savvy. I would say 40-year-olds at this point are pretty tech savvy. We might be talking more like 60-plus-year-olds at this point. The location and cost of the Internet Cafe, Tyler raised the issues of finding a suitable and affordable place. So really cool. We were able to find areas where we disagreed. The other thing that we can do is I can say create a table of the ideas discussed with their pros and cons. Now, the cool thing is I'm doing this after the meeting already occurred, but I could actually do these things during the meeting, during the live meeting. I can ask for Copilot to tell me what are some follow-up questions I can ask. What are some of the things I could be thinking about? I could even say things like, what was the percentage of time that each person spoke? So there's a lot of other cool things I can do. Here's the pro-cons list of each of the ideas. Really, really cool stuff. The last one I think is really kind of interesting that I like to use here is I want to know who's participating most in the meeting. So what I could do as well is I could ask Copilot to list the attendees, list the order of attendance based on the percentage of words spoken. So who talked the most? I want to know, give me a percentage of how many people were talking, who was most chatty. Maybe somebody was dominating the meeting, and I want to go later and talk to those that spoke less during the live meeting and maybe find out if they had some other ideas they weren't able to share. Really cool stuff you can do with inside of Copilot here. Now, this one's a little bit more of a complicated prompt, so it's taking a little bit more time, but it should be able to return back some results here for us. All right, there we go. And it looks like it just kind of stopped on me. So I might need to ask it a second time, but that's okay. All right, so that's some of the really cool stuff you can do in Teams. By the way, there's way more Teams interaction you can do even with inside of chats that you have. There it goes. It finally returned it correctly. Even with inside of the chats that you have with inside of Teams with your colleagues, you could ask Copilot to rewrite some of the messages that you're sending in a more professional manner. Maybe you're like me and you sometimes need someone over your shoulder to tell you, hey, you might want to reword that a little bit differently. There is that capability with inside of Copilot in Teams. So there's some really, really fun, interesting stuff you can do. Definitely worth exploring. We do have a Copilot in Teams class coming very soon. We're working on editing that one now. The last thing I'll kind of lightly mention here, there is also Copilot with inside of Outlook. There's Copilot in OneNote. There's Copilot in Loop. There's Copilot in Whiteboard, Microsoft Whiteboard. We have classes coming out on all of those different Copilots that are integrated in. We're going to be doing individual classes on each of those. And actually, most of them we have already recorded. We're just going through some edits on them. Let me also share with you this. We have, I mentioned this earlier, but we have created a Copilot cheat sheet. My team will post a link in the chat. Feel free to download that. There's a short form you'll fill out, and you'll get access to our Copilot cheat sheet talking about ways to write prompts more effectively. Definitely recommend looking at that. We also talk about different use cases with inside of Microsoft 365 as part of that cheat sheet as well. So you'll find a link. I'm sure my team is probably putting that in the chat already. Now, to wrap up, don't leave yet. We got two more things I want to share with you. We have on Monday a hot seat challenge coming up. Hot seat challenge. You're probably wondering, what in the world is a hot seat challenge? Hot seat challenge. You might have seen some of the things we've been doing on YouTube of late. We've been doing some hot wings challenge, some hot sauce challenge. I got my hot sauce right here ready to go for our challenge on Monday. On Monday coming up, Greg Treziak is going to be leading or really being our kind of moderator as Brian and I are taking on each other in a hot seat challenge. This is all part of showing you how CertXP can make you a more effective test taker, and we make test taking fun with CertXP. So make sure you join us on Monday. That'll be a live event that we do on Monday, coming up just a few days from now. So make sure you check that out. Also, before we wrap up, thank you so much for those that have participated. I've seen the chat has been blowing up. A lot of good comments, questions. We will have a follow-up Q&A coming up. But I also, Marshall, if you want to jump in, I want to use those of you that have been interacting in today's session to give away a free annual subscription. So hopefully you've hung out with us here throughout the day, and we want to give away an annual subscription to our on-demand learning for those that have participated. So if you're wondering how are we giving this away, it's based on your participation and joining us in today's session. So Marshall, you want to take it from here?
Let me unmute. There we go.
There we go. We got you.
That's a very 2020 thing to do. Yeah, so we are going to do a quick drawing. We're going to give away a free license to our on-demand learning platform. It is going to skew towards those that were very active in the chat. So now my Apple hand signals are going crazy for us. So folks that talked more in the chat are going to have a higher propensity to win. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the drawing now and see who. You must be present to win. So let's see who this is.
Yay! Pragmatic Works. Wow, talk about a.
I guess we were the most active here. So let's try that one more time.
That's funny. Well, the name's going to be shorter this time.
We're going to teach Brian some Power BI. Here we go. KJA541. KJA541. Never had a KJA541 win. What do you think, Devin? Is that a real person?
I think it probably is a real person, but tell you what, let's do another one. So KJA541, if you can email marketing@pragmaticworks.com and let them know, give us some kind of screenshot showing us that's you.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's do one more, Marshall.
Yeah, we'll do one more just to make sure. This might be Pragmatic Works again, but let's see what we have. And the winner is Mark Katz. Woo! Congratulations, Mark. Mark, as Devin said, please send an email to marketing@pragmaticworks.com, and we will set you up with your on-demand learning license. Plus, it includes the Cert XP feature. So you'll want to take advantage of that. So Mark Katz, please send us an email, marketing@pragmaticworks.com.
Well, thank you, everyone. And just a reminder, a couple of things we mentioned. 50% off sale for our on-demand learning, which includes all Cert XP, as Marshall just mentioned. So if you didn't win today, we gave away 2 free licenses. If you didn't win today, you can still purchase the annual subscription for 50% off through the end of the month. Also, we have all of our Copilot training classes are free through the 24th. That's this Sunday. They're active now. So if you haven't already, make sure you sign up for our community plan. That's on the screen right now below my head. You can sign up and you can get access to way more than what I was able to show in an hour and a half session today. If you want to learn more about Copilot, check those out. There's a prompt writing class. There is a Copilot in Teams. Copilot. There's all kinds of Copilot classes out there. So make sure you take a peek at that. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. We'll see you in our April Learn with the Nerds with Mitchell Pearson. That's our visual calculation section. We'll also see you Monday. We got a lot going on. On Monday, we'll be doing our hot seat challenge. And then we'll also be following up later in the week with a Q&A session. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and happy Copilot.
Can query some of that SharePoint list like tearing up, man.
Yeah. That one hit me hard. I feel similar with Power BI. There's some things with SharePoint I'd like to change up a tad bit. So, you ready for the next question? Yeah.
Let's dive into the hot seat.